in college basketball.
Yeah, and I'm all for it, by the way. You can take your St. Peter's Miami final and stick it. I want Duke, UNC, Kansas, and Villanova in this thing, and I'll be totally happy with it. Look, so much was made, and I was on Villanova Island, it felt like yesterday, as Houston became quickly a very public team, both as a dog against Arizona. And I backed Arizona. I think we were on the show together when I backed Arizona. I just couldn't turn down Arizona -1.5 because they're never that short of a favorite. Now, that said, again, I backed Villanova for a couple of reasons yesterday. One, the free throw shooting. That was obviously in a game that was going to be that tight. You knew the free throw shooting was going to be huge. But also the total to me yesterday, when oddsmakers set it at 128, for a team that scores, 79, 80 on the regular in Houston, it indicated me, oddsmakers told me that this game was going to be slow, it was going to be low scoring, and all of that favored Villanova. So the total led me to that. The one concern I had going into the game, Jared, was the huge advantage that Houston had on the boards against Villanova. I think people aren't talking enough about that as the reason why Houston lost, because in reality, they did not play that well on the boards. Villanova had one less rebounder when it was all said and done in the game than Houston did. And the only reason they had one less is because in that final possession, after they chucked up a three, they got a rebound and chucked up another one. But they had the same number of rebounds the entire game. Houston was supposed to dominate, particularly on the offensive glass, and get second chance points and get easy buckets underneath. That didn't happen. Anytime you go 1 for 20, you're going to have a rough night from three. Like, that's just not a good recipe to win a basketball game. And Houston had a problem there, and they missed their free throws, which we knew they were going to because they were a bad free throw shooting team. But still, to me, I don't think enough people were talking about the rebounding advantage that Houston did not exploit.
Yeah, that was something that surprised me. 1 for 20 from three. Can't predict that. Turnover battle was even last night between Nova and Houston as well. The nightcap between Arkansas and Duke, I think the over was the right side there. I know it didn't get there in the end because Arkansas just gave up. That was surprising to me. Down 9 with a minute left, they just didn't foul. They didn't even try to, hey, maybe Duke misses the front end, you hit a 3, you're down 6, and then there's 45 seconds left and it's a 2-possession game. Was that surprising to you, and really tough beat for overbackers in the game?
Yeah, there's a lot of overbackers cringing at the end of that. I was surprised. I was almost kind of like shocked. And I had a friend who was texting me after the first half, I need them to stop scoring. I was like, I don't know. If Arkansas keeps missing shots, you might have a shot here. But didn't Duke look like the most complete team in the tournament last night?
Yes.
Didn't they look like they are a national championship team? Yes. Finally, their defense has gotten together. You and I have talked so much about how bad their defense has been down the stretch and how much I wanted to fade them because of their defense. Saved the Michigan State game in round 2, in the second round, where they allowed Michigan State to hit 50% from three. The defense has played well in the other 3 games in this tournament. I can't, you have to call it what it is. They still have the ability to have a bad defensive game. I wouldn't totally discard that because of what the sample set we've seen down the back end of the regular season into the ACC tournament. But when they play like they did last night, their size, their rebounding, they're going to be incredibly tough to beat.
Yeah, interesting results there last night. I think the one thing that stood out to me about the Duke game, Jeremy Roach, was so good in the Sweet 16, not so good last night. 5 turnovers, only 9 points. That's a guy that when they do face, I'm just assuming, that they face North Carolina in the Final Four, that backcourt is going to have to be good. We know about Duke's front court. They were phenomenal last night. Williams was tremendous. 12 rebounds, 12 points, just dominant in the paint. But that backcourt's going to have to be better if they're going to want to win the title. But I agree. I think Duke looks like the best team right now. And you put that in a vacuum, it's going to be some Final Four. All right, here on today's show, we'll have a lot more college basketball coming up. 2 more Elite 8 games today. We're going to bring Jim Root in about 10 minutes or so, and we'll get to those games. Also, we're going to do a little NHL talk. And why not? We'll start with a little NBA, Mark. I know you're big into the NBA. I've got a prop on Jalen Brunson over 3.5 assists. Not a huge play for me, but when I was looking at the numbers, I did see that the Mavericks, to me, have been a team that's been playing relatively well down the stretch, and they're facing the Jazz tonight. And the Jazz have actually allowed the sixth most assists over the last 5 games, and they've been struggling. They've lost 3 in a row. And this is going to be an interesting 4-5 matchup. If the playoffs started today in the West, it would be Utah and Dallas battling it out in that 4-5 matchup. So that's my only play today on the NBA card. But it is a pretty good night in the NBA. A lot of games on the slate tonight, and I know you're diving in.
Yeah, plenty. And I wrote up the Jazz Mavericks preview for the Pickswise website here tonight,
Nice.
backing Dallas -2 and the under in this game. Look, you get the sense that both of these teams identical, 45-29 records, as you just mentioned, both tied for the 4 seed. This is a game where Utah won the first 2 at home. Dallas won the last one on their home court. Clearly, Dallas needs this for tie-breaking purposes. You're talking about home court advantage and playoff seeding implications on the line in this game. You're going to get a playoff atmosphere in Dallas. Don't forget here about as much as the attention's on Luka Doncic, Spencer Dinwiddie has been fantastic as of late. 19 points a game, shooting 45% from the floor over his last 10 games, an excellent complimentary score. But this game's going to be all about defense. You're going to get that atmosphere tonight at American Airlines Arena in Dallas, where you're going to just see defense on full display. I like Dallas. I'm laying the points with them tonight, and I did so on the Pickswise website. Little pat on the back for me. Yesterday, Jared had a 3-star play on the Brooklyn Nets, who's got home. They got home in dramatic fashion, pasting the Miami Heat. But I will tell you, one of my favorite plays today is the Charlotte Hornets getting 7 points. Right now it's 7. But getting 7 points against Brooklyn. And I stress right now because I believe the public is going to start to pound Brooklyn throughout the day. Look, it's Brooklyn coming home after a huge win. One, they're on a back-to-back, which is never favors the team laying that many points. That's number one. Number two, though, there's going to be such this public admiration for Kyrie Irving getting his first home game at the Barclays Center. I think the public's going to jump all over this. The Nets defense is bad. They have given up 119 points per game over their last dozen games. This is a Charlotte Hornets team that's second or third in the league in points scored per game. They're going to be able to score a ton in this game. I think Brooklyn probably still wins it, but Charlotte's going to keep this thing close. I would wait because I believe this will get to 7.5, maybe even 8 by the time they tip this thing off. But still, Charlotte's the play on this side. It's a little bit of a letdown spot on a back-to-back. Again, I think Brooklyn probably still wins, but it's probably by 2 or 3 in this spot here. Give me the Hornets +7 as one of my plays. Phoenix and Philadelphia. James Harden.
Good game.
Over. Yeah, it's going to be a great game, but it's an over game. I mean, look, this is a spot where Philadelphia typically doesn't see totals this high, but that's because of their defense. Now, Philadelphia's offense since James Harden has come in, we know it's been transformative, right? They certainly have been a lot better and been able to score. Phoenix has won 7 straight. They've scored at least 125 in every single one of those games. There's no reason against this defense they're not going to get to 120. 120 to 110 gets me home over 229. Remember, James Harden, for as much as he's meant to Philadelphia's offense, he's meant to their defense. As in, he doesn't play any. As in, like, they don't, he doesn't stop anybody. So as long as Harden doesn't have one of those 3 for 12 shooting games where he's 1 for 9 from 3 and 3 for 12 from the 4, if he gets to the low 20s, 22, 25 range, this thing's going over. It really is all on Harden. And I don't know that Phoenix is necessarily going to stop. Obviously, Harden's played Phoenix enough throughout his career and knows how to score against them. So give me the over in this game. And then I'll back Minnesota as well, getting 6 points. Too many points for Boston at home. I think they're only 17, 21, and 2 at home against the number this year. Just too many points. Boston probably wins, but Minnesota's got a high enough scoring offense to keep it close.
Yeah, good slate today. The afternoon slate, Knicks, Pistons, probably avoid that one. But then you got a good
Pickswise website too. Give me the Pistons +5.
All right, fair enough. Pistons home dog. I don't mind that. And then you've got the Warriors in DC tonight. That's an interesting game. Lakers are in New Orleans tonight. Pelicans are laying about 3. That's an interesting game. You mentioned that Charlotte-Brooklyn game, and I do think the best game of the night is this Utah-Dallas game. Yeah. This is going to be a playoff preview. Seen a little bit of movement already towards Utah, so you actually can get Dallas at a better price. Right now, I'm seeing it at a pick'em at Caesars. Again, my only bet tonight in the NBA, I got Brunson, the Mavericks point guard, over 3.5 assists, +130. Good price for the primary ball handler for Dallas to get 4 assists. Interesting with Brunson, when I was looking at his assist per game numbers this season, October, 4.7, November, 5.2, December, 6.2, January, 5.6, February, 4.3, and in March, only averaging 2.5 assists per game. And I don't know if that's because Dinwiddie's emergence, but in my eyes, Brunson is probably the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands most besides Luka Doncic. The last time these two teams played, Doncic had 11 assists. I'm willing to bet that's not going to happen, and Utah's probably going to roll some defenses towards him to get the ball out of his hands. So maybe Brunson has a good game tonight. I could see that over 3.5 at +130. I like the price. All right. Do we have Jim? We do. Great. Let's bring Jim Root in. because we have some college basketball things to discuss today. It is the Elite Eight. Obviously, we have 2 more games on the Elite Eight card before we get to the Final Four. Jim, good morning to you, sir. Talk to me about last night. Any expectations for today? Anything surprise you?
Hey, Zeno was right.
So it was right. Yeah, I guess. I feel like Jared, you and I did well too. I know we had discussed some of the games behind the scenes. Duke, I was on Duke. I'm sorry. I know you're an Arkansas
No,
guy, but
I was a total misread on the sides yesterday, and I think a lot of it was I drank the Cougars Kool-Aid, and I
did too.
keep fading Duke because I keep this this just nugget in the back of my mind of how bad their defense is played, but I think that narrative is changing a little bit now.
It's changing a little. I mean, Mark Williams does so much to
Yeah.
erase the mistakes of the rest of their defense, and the offense is ridiculous right now. I mean, they've just played 2 really good defenses in a row and torched them both. They're like 1 through 6. Their top 6 players are all making plays offensively. And Keels came in and made that huge shot before
Yeah.
halftime. And you mentioned just now that Roach wasn't playing that well yesterday. It just doesn't matter because they've got Banchero, they've got more. Like it is ridiculous the level that the offense is getting to. And kind of all season, I was like, all right, Duke games, they're about Duke. Are they motivated? Are they going to play up to their ceiling as they did in the Gonzaga game, the Kentucky game? And, they had the lapses against Miami and some other teams at home, Virginia of note. But, man, when they get to that top level, I don't think anyone can play with them. They've got 5 first-round picks. I saw a couple of the pro scouts tweeting about it yesterday. Like every guy played his role. Like every NBA guy was playing to his NBA caliber yesterday, basically, and that's kind of unbeatable for somebody else in the college game. So I think they've reached the level. I'm well beyond worried about being worried about the Coach K pressure thing. They've been awesome down the stretch of 3 straight games. So yeah, Duke. I gave into it before last game, and I bought in a large plus 400 futures piece for Duke.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm gonna ride it out.
That
I know
was
you've
the
got a
one
much better
team
price.
that you were off on, and I that 4 months of waiting for the Duke Final Four ticket came through last night, and now we get the tournament future at I think I got 17-1 on them. But how about the ACC? 12-2 now, ATS in the tourney. Mark, to me, when you look at what the ACC has done, and we'll get another glimpse of it today with Miami and UNC. Is it possible that we get 3 ACC teams in the Final Four?
Yeah, I mean, for as much as we lauded the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10, it would be fitting for a Big East team and 3 ACC teams to get there,
Yeah.
and leave those other conferences in the dust. Again, I look at the ACC and even the Big East, and part of this too. I said, we devalued Villanova because the Big East, quote, had a down year, right? Like, I mean, it's the same thing. We devalued some of these ACC teams because it was a down year in the ACC. And we spent so much time, diving into the Big 12 and the SEC because they had all the offenses and teams that could score. I think that was a big part of it. You look at Baylor and Kansas, and you look at all the SEC teams like Alabama and Auburn, these high pace scoring teams that draw people's attention. But you look at a team like Villanova, I mean, look at the run that they're going to have to get through if they're going to win a national title. Not only do they have to slow down Houston, they'll have to slow down either Miami or Kansas, and then likely Duke or UNC. I mean, if they win a national championship, this may be one of the most underrated defensive teams that we've seen in our lifetimes to be able to do it, given what they've gone up against. They're not afraid of anybody. Their brand of basketball, and I said this to Jared before we went on the air, Jim, like, even though Villanova was missing shots last night, Jay Wright was on the sidelines with his arms folded going, I love this. This is exactly the game I want. I don't care if just everybody missed. We're good. We're good. I mean, that's how much of the pace he wants to grind it down. He was not upset that his team was missing shots and chucking up way too many threes at the start of that game last night. It just feeds right into what they do best.
Right. And it drives you nuts to play against them because you're like, oh, we missed 2 threes in a row. We have to go play defense for 30 seconds against the team that moves the ball, maybe the best in the entire country. And like Houston is one of the few capable of playing with that kind of patience and dealing with it over and over and over again. And they still got beat because they couldn't knock down shots. And sometimes it comes down to that. The one other thing for Villanova, if they win a title at this point without Justin Moore, then Jay Wright just like print the the Hall of Fame ticket, build the carve the bust. Like, I mean, he is just one of the like 3 best coaches of all time. I think, or maybe 5 or 7 best coaches of all time. But I mean, Justin Moore is a huge part of that team, the shot making late in the shot clock. And it seems like he's not going to be playing in New Orleans. So yeah, I mean, I'm mega impressed by Villanova, what they did against Houston, outlasting a team that's that physical. And yeah, we've got
I mean,
a couple games left today.
Of the teams that I just mentioned, Miami, Kansas, Duke, UNC, the only one I even see them being close to a favorite is against Miami, and it might only be a 1-point favorite, right? Like they're going to be undervalued as a dog throughout the rest of the Final Four, and I can't wait to jump on them. I mean, just again, because you're going to look at their offense and go, oh, they're not that good, and they're facing. I mean, I just think they, as Jared said before the show, they should not have been a dog yesterday. Remember, they were the higher seeded team, and they were catching points, and it ended up closing at 3 of all things before tip-off last night, which was maniacal that we fell in love with Houston and their ability to make shots throughout the thing. And I get it, but still, defense is always the thing you got to go back to. Defense and guard play is what wins in March.
Yeah, that was surprising. The one issue that I have now, they only play 7 guys. And now more, I mean, I saw Dr. David Chow's tweet. I mean, it's like 99% confirmed it's an Achilles with Moore, and that's it. He's done for the tournament. And that's a terrible loss.
Yeah.
But you're right. They've been overlooked, undervalued all season. The Big East as well, overlooked and undervalued. I know Providence has been that hot button team, but hey, they were able to cover against Kansas and a lot of these other underdogs that, you know, maybe should have had a little more credence to them have not been able to cover. So going to be fascinating to see how that plays out, especially if it's Kansas, because Kansas is so deep and they've got such a good backcourt, and we'll get to them in just a moment. Jim, we talked about the first half unders a lot. Yesterday we did cash one with Nova, but then the Duke one obviously goes over, even though the full game went under. But I think the first half under train, as you say here in the notes, finally derailed, right?
Yeah, it was a bummer. I was riding it into oblivion, and then I'm going to be back on it for at least one of the games tonight.
All right.
But yeah, it was kind of fun. The tempo usually slows down in the postseason, and I think I heard somewhere else that in the past the tempo has been even slower in the Elite Eight than it has in the Final Four. Just like the tension of trying to get there is more of a slower than the actual Final Four is. So I'm going to keep an eye on that for today. I'm not sure we're going to go 2-0, but game by game, instead of auto betting, I'm going game by game and trying to find the one with the right matchups. And I think there is one solid one today.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's get into tonight's action. Kansas and Miami. Actually, it's afternoon action, which is much better than yesterday, having to wait around till 6 o'clock Eastern to watch these games. Kansas laying 6 against Miami. The total was, in my eyes, a little higher than maybe some would expect. And I think that's why we are seeing significant amount of handle to the under. How about these splits, guys? At FanDuel, 77% of bets, 79% of money to the under, 74-84 at MGM. I mean, those are 2 of the biggest shops in the country. And the public is usually, they don't love the unders. But today, hammering the under in this Miami-Kansas game. And Mark, I know that to you is of significant interest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the over. I look at the way this game should go, and I do question who the pace favors. If it's fast paced, does it favor Miami or does it favor Kansas? I haven't really been able to figure that out. I think there are arguments for both sides. Kansas has a huge advantage on the boards. Miami is 334th in the nation in rebounding, and Houston didn't take advantage of that against Nova, but I think Kansas will take advantage of that against Miami. Now, what I'm hoping for here is that Miami scores early and often, and really forces Kansas to not want to slow things down in a half-court set. What's interesting about Miami and this game, and here's the one thing that I think would trap me into or get me in a bad spot with the over. Miami is shooting 56% from 2-point land and just 23% from 3. If I am Bill Self, I am clogging the middle and daring Miami to shoot threes at the outset of this game. Now, if that's the case, I hope, as somebody bet the over, Miami makes them, because it'll force Kansas to kind of push and get back into it. But I think that's the way Kansas should play this game. But I just see scoring begetting more scoring. And if Miami plays the way they have, save the USC game, if they play offensively the way they have in their other 2 games, this one should mirror that. And both of these teams should get to the mid-70s. There's no reason not to. I don't know that Kansas desires to play a slower pace, although they can. and their defense is very competent. I just think, with the way Kansas is and the way they're built, and Agbaji and everybody else, like, this is a team that would rather play a high scoring, fast paced game.
Yeah, this is one where I'm taking the first half under because I think there's going to be nerves and tension, and they're going to try to feel each other out a little bit. But I actually like the full game over too. I know that's kind of backwards, but I think we see kind of a scoring explosion in the second half. Both these teams do want to run. Both of them rate out much better offensively than they do defensively. Miami's a great pick and roll team. Now Kansas can defend that, but I just think the ACC has shown well. And the guards here, that the backcourt trio for Miami is maybe as good as it gets in the tournament outside of Duke or maybe Kansas with the way Remy Martin is playing. But this Wong, McGusty, Moore trio is elite. And I think they're going to give Kansas a lot of problems. And remember, this is a Kansas team that gave up 44 in the second half to Providence. Not a great offensive team. And then also over a point per possession, 72 points to Creighton, who's down their best two players. They're down to four guys that could score with any competence, and they still gave up that efficient of a day. So I think Miami's going to find their way to points, particularly in the second half. And then Kansas, man, they can score too, especially with Remy Martin in there. Jared, I know you're going to talk about Martin's impact, but he's just given them such a boost. Even when the starters were stalled out against Providence in the first half, he came in and gave them a huge lift.
Remy Martin goes down smooth. I can't take credit for that. That was all Ian Eagle, who is a gem, a play-by-play gem, probably the best in the business right now. Yes, I do think Remy Martin's going to have an impact on this game. Here are his averages for the tournament. 19.3 points per game, 3.6 assists. He's 4 of 10 from 3, 14 of 20 from the line. And so the 13.5 at his point prop, I think, is an over. That's probably my only real solid look for this game. I'm going to tail Mark on the over because I got a good number this morning at DraftKings, 146.5. So I got a half point value there. And I agree. First of all, I love fading the public. You guys know that, especially at this stage of the tournament. And you do not see the public just banging the under as heavily as you do. Usually, if it's an under game, it's because the two teams are under teams. I wouldn't say Kansas is an under team. To me, Kansas is an over team. Miami, you probably can go two different ways on them, but it's not like this is a slow pace, grinded out defensive game where everyone's going to want to bet the under because the total's really low and everyone's going to say, oh, how is this game going to get into the 60s? This seems like an over game. The pace, I think, can go over, but yet we're seeing a lot of people really hammer the under. And I think that's because what we're hearing with the first half unders and all the noise that we've heard over the last couple of days about that. I'll mention this about the Jayhawks, which was surprising to me when I looked this up last night. They have the best 2-point percentage defense in the tournament on field goals. It's impressive. And their EFG percentage in the tournament is also best so far in their tournament games. So that to me is surprising that they're so good interior defensively. And you're right, Mark. I do think if I'm Bill Self, I'm going to force Miami, who's not a good three-point shooting team, to shoot over me. And when you're jacking up a lot of threes, obviously there's variance there. Houston last night goes 1 for 20. Miami could go 1 for 20. That would suck for our over. But I think there's going to be more than one out of 20 made tonight for Miami or this afternoon. So I like the over 146.5. I think it's 147 now. And I like Remy Martin over 13.5 points. I got that over at Bet365. Really solid number there. And to me, guys, the Canes, the three opponents in the tournament, USC, Auburn, and Iowa State, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. I mean, Kansas's backcourt compared to those three teams. I know Auburn's really good, but it's more front court. USC, not very impressive. And then Iowa State, I mean, we talked about their backcourt, not exactly world beaters. This is the best backcourt Miami has faced in this tournament, and it's not even close.
Yeah, not close at all. Auburn and USC are kind of the mirror images of each other. Like they're built through their front court. If their guards play well, that's just gravy for them. And then Iowa State, man, that half-court offense, it was one of the worst in the tournament, but they found a way to win a couple of games. So, yeah, this is definitely the best one they faced. But you know what? I'm also taking Miami plus 6.5. After all that,
Tell me why.
I think they can score with Kansas. Like I said, I don't really trust this Kansas defense at all. They had an ice-cold Providence team. That was why they were able to get up early. They ended up conceding the lead late. Providence took a late lead in that one. So I just kind of think Miami can score with them. So that's part of my thinking on the full game over being viable, despite me taking the first half under 69. I just think they're going to hang around they're not going to quit in the final minute like Arkansas did. That was very strange.
We talked about that.
Yeah,
Down 9.
I heard you guys. Yeah.
What?
Made no sense. I mean, crazier things have happened
It's
in
the front end
before.
still. Like,
yeah.
give one foul. Like, one.
Right. It's bizarre. But so, yeah, I think Miami will hang around here. Jim Larrañaga's won in this round as an underdog before. That 2006 game was epic. George Mason taking down UConn. And that was, I think, the last time that a 1 seed did not make the Final Four. And it was Jim Larrañaga's job to take care of that, so we could have it happen again here. But I just kind of believe in what Miami's doing offensively. I think they've tightened up enough defensively. It's not great. It's certainly not the strength of their team, but I think they can tighten up. And Agbaji just hasn't played that well for Kansas, so it's going to be a lot of Martin. And I'll take the dog here. I'm not crazy about it, but I think it's a close enough game that they're going to hang around and not have a great chance to win, but they have a chance.
I was surprised when I saw Baji's point prop at 16.5. I wouldn't sniff that. Too high for a guy that's not shooting it well from the outside. Martin, I think, is the engine of this offense right now. That doesn't mean Agbaji can't go off. He's got the talent. But if you were going to ask me which player I think is going to be more consistent today, I'll take the one with the 3 points cheaper on the player prop number. All right, let's move on to the underdog of the tournament, the St. Peter's Peacocks. And listen, guys, this team has defied the laws of basketball physics, I think, over the last week. The win over Purdue, and Mark, I'll start with you on this question before we get into the odds and who's going to win the game. Is that the most surprising result in recent memory of the tournament, considering the physicality difference between Purdue and St. Peter's and just how big of a gap that game really was if you look at the box score?
I mean, I guess when you put it that way, yes. But in reality, Zach Edey was a 7-foot honky dude who looked like he never played basketball before.
It's awful.
Like, that's the way he showed up in that game, which was depressing. Look, Purdue dominated on the glass in that game. Purdue's problem was they turned the ball over 15 times. St. Peter's only did it 8, and they gave the ball away. Like, they were not supposed to lose that game the way they lost it. And this continues to happen. And I feel like I'm taking things away from St. Peter's, and I don't want to, but they keep getting the benefit of teams not playing to their numbers in major areas in a game and everybody that they've faced. And so I don't know how much longer that's going to continue. Look, Houston got exposed in their weakness in free throw shooting in their game against Villanova. I think the same thing happens to St. Peter's here. St. Peter's is a 70% free throw shooting team on the year. You know what they're shooting in the tournament, guys, from the charity stripe? Almost 83%. Wow. Like, that's how they are. They are winning these close games because they're making their free throws. And we've seen the shirt, make your damn free throws. I mean, I get it. They're doing it, so they're advancing, and I can't take that away from them. But, I mean, objectively, guys, when you look at this game, metrically, there is nothing to compare because every metric says UNC should kick their ass, period. Like, there is nothing about these two teams that is metrically close other than St. Peter's is at a top 20 scoring defense this year, and North Carolina's at a top 20 scoring offense. Like, those are the only two things that really you can look at of any consequence that matter. Everywhere else, UNC should destroy this team. Armando Bacot should have a field day. And if I am Hubert Davis, all it requires for you to do is have patience. Keep feeding Bacot inside, feeding him, feeding him, feeding him. St. Peter's is one of the highest fouling teams in the nation. Force them to screw up against a bigger guy and get into foul trouble early, make your free throws, and St. Peter's shouldn't be in this game. Like, I don't know how they keep doing it, and I don't want to step in front of the train, but guess what? I'm standing on the tracks, guys.
It's not a train that I think is like I'm scared to step in front of because, Jim, it does seem like St. Peter's, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors because they're tough as nails and they execute, which is what you need to do in March. But when I think about the optics of this game, St. Peter's was catching almost 2 touchdowns against Purdue. And if you look at the metrics, UNC is playing light years ahead of Purdue in the Torvik ratings in the tournament, how they look, the eye test of UNC compared to the eye test of Purdue. And I'm getting 5 points discount on the line now down to UNC -8. I see some 8.5s, but if you look around, you can get 8. To me, it's a no-brainer. We got to take the Tar Heels in this spot.
Yeah, I laid 8. I think there's numerical reasons that you basically just laid out. Like, I just don't think the spread is really correct based on full season sample and comparison to prior games. I mean, Kentucky was laying 18 against this team. And now, like, I don't think Kentucky would lay 10 on a neutral to North Carolina. I just don't. No. And I know that St. Peter's has played a lot better, but so has Carolina. Like, it's not like they're
the number one team in the tournament on Torvik's ratings.
Yeah, since March 1st, they're the number one team in the country. Like, that's how well they've been playing. The big difference for me here too this is the first like stretch big that St. Peter's defense has faced. Brady Manick has hit almost 100 threes this year. He's been playing incredible in this tournament. I think that's going to loosen up the interior defense for St. Peter's, which has been a huge strength for them. Zeno mentioned the free throws. If you had told me that St. Peter's was going to shoot 6 more free throws than Purdue, I would have like put you in an asylum, said you're absolutely insane. Like, there's no chance that happens based on numbers, based on size, of
logic,
rosters,
reason,
play. Yeah, it would have made no sense to me, but it happened. Peter's made their free throws. I just can't keep banking on that sort of statistical anomaly. And look, I've been against St. Peter's all 3 games already. So
me too.
I've been wrong 3 times.
Except for the first game. I had him against Kentucky because I thought that was a heavy number, but I faded him ever since.
Tip of the cap to you, but I'm going back to the well. UNC -8.
Again, I'm reluctantly doing it against my better judgment because this should be a complete stay away from me. I stayed away from him last round. I stayed away from him against Murray State. So I'm not, my better judgment says just walk away from this game and don't touch it. Now, that said, the way St. Peter's ends up covering this number is what happens to North Carolina has happened to the other 3 teams. The anomaly of what they do well has fallen apart. North Carolina is shooting 46% from the field in this tournament so far. They're a very good shooting team. If they end up in the mid-30s today shooting, that's the only reason St. Peter's is in this game. That's what it's going to require. If North Carolina plays to their numbers, this game should not be close. Yeah. It shouldn't. But again, I can't eliminate the variance of North Carolina all of a sudden having their worst shooting game in the tournament, much similar to the way Gonzaga had their worst shooting game in the tournament against Arkansas, much similar to the way, Purdue had their worst turnover game in the tournament against St. Peter. I mean, these things just happen. There's no way to eliminate it, but the numbers tell me North Carolina should cover this thing.
Yeah, it's a good debate. I want to make one more point that I guess reiterate one that Zeno made that I thought was spot on, is that North Carolina needs to go to what works and be patient. Purdue in that game, there's a point where they were like tied or up 2, and it just felt like they're like, why aren't we up 10? Why aren't we up 10? We need to like shoot a 3 right away and build this lead up in an instant. You just need to be methodical. St. Peter's makes you play that way, but North Carolina has the offensive talent to completely dismantle this defense. Go to Baycott, let them double, kick out to the open shooters. Just be patient. Don't get tight because of game pressure. Just run your stuff, UNC.
So to your point, Baycott in the ACC and NCAA tournaments, that's 5 games. He's averaging 13.2 rebounds, 23 offensive rebounds in 5 games. I mean, and that's against ACC and higher level talent, Marquette, Baylor, UCLA. I mean, again, take nothing away from St. Peter's. This is a team that has been a middling team all year with a great defense, but a middling mid-major team in a bad mid-major conference all season long. And eventually the Cinderella slipper will fall off, and it usually hits with a thud. These teams that lose, they usually don't lose by a bucket. When they lose, the bottom falls out. And I just don't think they're not catching anyone by surprise anymore. The news is out on St. Peter's, and I think UNC will be much better prepared for this game mentally than Purdue was, who at times have performed very much beneath those numbers. UNC right now playing above what their numbers have indicated, which I think is very positive for them. Again, they've been the best team in the tournament according to the analytics so far. Jim, before we cut you loose, anything in the futures market does at this stage? Probably not, but maybe one of the exactas, maybe a most outstanding player. You can still get Remy Martin at 750. That's my guy.
That is your guy. No, I don't have anything super special to add there. I'm sitting on a couple preseason futures plus the Duke one I added at 4-1. So I don't have anything great there. My most outstanding player gamble was Jamal Shed, and he is Gonzo. So
it's a shame because Houston was they were so ready for that run, and they ran into a really good Nova defense, and they just got absolutely thwarted. Great stuff, bud. Final 4 predictions. Anything for you before we cut you? I mean, we'll do it next week too, but if you want to give an early Final 4 predictions.
I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be the 4 Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
I think the favorites win today outright. And as someone who's going to be there in person and has seen the ticket prices for this event, I am ecstatic, and I hope we get that because, man, it's going to be electric if we get those 4 teams down there. So.
I can't imagine. Has there ever been a Final 4 with this many blue? I mean, I'm sure there has.
I saw the stat that there's only been one other Final 4 where multiple coaches have won multiple titles.
Yeah.
So you got Jay Wright with 2 and Coach K with 5. And the other one was 1951.
And Bill Self has one too. So,
Right.
really Hubert Davis is the only guy out in the cold. But wouldn't
Yeah,
that be
him or Shaheen Holloway? How dare they drag us down with 0?
Yeah, I listen, guys. I know St. Peter's public dog today. I know. Listen, you're talking to. I live in Jersey City, for God's sakes, and I'm fading St. Peter's today. I mean, it's
Don't
a
leave
great.
your house.
Yeah, right. It's a great story, and I think it's a lot of fun. But I just don't see it. All right, Jim. Great stuff, bud. I'm sure we'll catch up with you next week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's move on. We'll tackle some ice picks here, Mark, because Zeno's period's flying tonight. You got 2 of them on your card tonight, first period totals.
I do. One's an under and one's an over. First period under between Detroit and Pittsburgh, 2 of the lowest first period over teams in the league, or conversely, 2 of the highest first period under teams in the league, getting a good price here at plus 122. Detroit's coming off a back-to-back, a 1-goal loss last night to Tampa Bay. Pittsburgh's a little bit rested. Again, this is not a Pittsburgh team that likes to get out and play an aggressive style. You'll see Malkin and Crosby just kind of mess around with the puck and throw it back and forth and waste time and kill time. Detroit doesn't have an offense that's going to score in this first quarter, especially coming off a back-to-back. So if it's going to happen, my guess is it's Pittsburgh netting 2 goals by themselves in the first period, which, again, catching plus money, I'll bet against. Give me a first period under between Detroit and Pittsburgh. And then I was a little bit hesitant on this one, and I wanted to fire and on something first period over because there was so many good matchups out there, but I settled here on Colorado and Minnesota. Minnesota did not get me a first period over last night when they teamed up with Columbus. So I'm going to go back to the well, even though Minnesota is on a back-to-back. Colorado is well rested. Minnesota, 3rd highest first period over team in the league, 65% of first period overs on the season. And being the fact they didn't get one last night, they should bounce back statistically tonight. Colorado, well rested, should be able to find the back of the net. I'm not sure if it's Marc-Andre Fleury in net again for the Wild tonight. Let's see who the goaltenders are. But I got a good number at plus 152 or 158. I forget where it was. But nonetheless, it's below 160. And that's kind of like my buy point. Anything below 160 is good enough for me to buy on a first period over. So give me Colorado and Minnesota first period over. Detroit, Pittsburgh, first period under.
Zeno's been hot with the first periods. That's definitely your bread and butter. I have not seen any netminder updates on the website that I use to track them. The only starting goalie that is confirmed tonight is Peter Mrazek in net for the Leafs. I have one play in the on the NHL board, and I have one lean that I'll probably bet later just because I think the number's pretty solid, but it is an afternoon game. I'll start with that. Isles Lightning, good game today. This is a Stanley Cup Eastern Conference final rematch of last year. And the Isles are a big home dog. In fact, I was surprised when I saw plus 140 over at Caesars. Both teams played yesterday. Tampa Bay was in Detroit. They were down. They came back. They won in overtime 2-1. Isles got smoked by Boston 6-3. But that was on the road. Now they're back at home. They've won 6 straight at UBS Arena. And the Lightning have struggled. 2 3-game losing streaks in the month of March. They've been kind of on the fence. And we faded this Lightning team a lot over the last few weeks because I just think they're in Stanley Cup mode. And they know they're going to be in the playoffs. And they know they're going to have to defend their cup. And I don't think these regular season games matter as much. They matter a lot to the Isles, who are pretty much out of it, but not fully out of it, to where I think they're going to keep pushing because they have a lot of pride, especially with one of the best head coaches in hockey. So I'll take the Isles small today. Let's do half a unit, maybe 3/4 of a unit max on Isles money line plus 140. The play that I really like today on the ice, I'm going to go back to that Pens Wings game. I'm going to take the Pens on the puck line at minus 120. So we mentioned that Wings Pens game yesterday, or that Wings Lightning game yesterday, where the Wings really had to extend a lot of effort. They lost in overtime. Pens coming off of a bad loss to the Rangers, 5-1. They got smoked the other night by the Rangers, and they've dropped 2 straight. And this is a Pens team that right now barely has that 2 seed in the Metro. They're kind of flip-flopping back and forth between the Rangers and the Penguins. That's important because that 2 seed means you get home ice in that first round. And I think that matters. And I think the Penguins are going to be up for this game today against the Wings. So I'll lay a 1.5 goals on the puck line minus 120. That's my one solid play today on the ice. And we'll dabble with the Isles because I think the price is right. All right. 3-star plays of the day. I didn't see much on the site today. I will give a shout out though to Ricky Diamond. Ricky Diamond does have a 3-star play that he gave out earlier this week on Scotty Scheffler to win the match play. Well, Scotty Scheffler right now has a lead on Dustin Johnson in the semifinals. So if you want to maybe make a live bet on Scotty Scheffler to win the match play, probably can get not a great price, but you can at least get some skin in the game because Scheffler looks like the dude who's playing really well this week. And he's already got, I think, 2 wins on tour this year. And shout out Ricky, you had a 20-1 3-star play on him that's been on the site all week. And Scheffler right now in the semis. Also, Sidney Crosby. Mark Lammy's got a prop on Sidney Crosby today that I recommend that you all check out. That's on the site this afternoon. All right. Play of the day. I think we're kind of in agreement here, Mark. I'll let you start the fun.
Well, against my better judgment, I'm going to step in front of St. Peter's. I'm backing UNC. As I said earlier, there's not a metric out there that doesn't lead me to believe that UNC should kick this team's butt resoundingly. I am hoping for, and I hope Hubert Davis is watching and listening right now, just be patient. Feed Armando Bacot religiously underneath, outsize, out-muscle, and out-physical this team. The key for them is to get out early and force St. Peter's to chase. If they can do that, they're going to be fine. They're going to out-rebound St. Peter's. They should easily outshoot St. Peter's. I think St. Peter's, one of the highest fouling teams in the nation, will give North Carolina a lot of free points in this game. Again, against my better judgment, I am backing the Tar Heels here, mostly because, as this is for Alex Glaze, okay? It's destiny that Duke and UNC play in the semifinal in Coach K's final year. It has to happen. It's destiny. So we're going to back the Tar Heels tonight and lay the 8.
The team of destiny. I miss Alex Glaze. Hopefully he's having fun in Chicago right now. I saw he was at that Kansas Providence game the other night, spiking a bunch of race to 10s, race to 15s. So we'll see. We'll check in on his bankroll next week to see how he did with his Illinois trip because he was all excited. Because, in Maryland, you can't bet on the mobile. And then he goes to Illinois and you can bet on mobile. It's a different game when you can pull out the phone and just fire away with those bets. All right, we're all in agreement on UNC today. And I think the mayor of Jersey City is going to stop by my apartment later and, rescind my membership to the Jersey City Rotary Club because I keep fading the Peacocks. And I know it goes against all of the fun things that happen in March. We love Cinderellas in March. I just think there's too much going against the Peacocks in this game. I think the run ends. I think UNC's offense, which has been just dynamic in this tournament, is not going to make the same mistakes and run into the same issues that Purdue ran into the other night. I was very impressed with how UNC closed that game against UCLA. I thought they were going to lose. I thought the Bruins were going to move on, and it was going to be one of those defensive grinders, but then Caleb Love just took over. And that's the thing about UNC that I think Purdue didn't have. Purdue has Jaden Ivey who can run around and do all those great things, but at their core, they're a big, brooding team, and their bigs weren't playing well. The UNC bigs have been outstanding in this tournament, and I think they're going to be more consistent. I like the point that Jim Root made about Brady Manick being a stretch 4, a stretch 5, going to make those St. Peter's bigs come out and meet him at the arc. And then, goodness gracious, Armando Bacot is an absolute monster. We mentioned the rebounding numbers, 13.2 boards in the 5 tournament games, ACC and NCAA tourney combined, 23 offensive rebounds. He's going to be a beast in the middle. And this St. Peter's run has been very exciting, but they're not going to catch anyone off guard anymore. They're not going to be able to get a sucker punch on UNC early. The Tar Heels know they're going to be game. And I just think we're getting a very big discount on this number. Kentucky was an 18-point favorite against St. Peter's. Purdue was a 13.5-point favorite against St. Peter's. I would put UNC on that same level as those teams, quality, talent, all of those things, and yet they're only laying 8. Easy bet for me today. I don't love it because I love these Jersey City stories, and I love these Peacocks, and there's a great, Cinderella story, but I do think it ends today, and when it ends, it usually ends with a thud. And with that, Let's Bet It is going to end. For Mark Zinno, I'm Jared Smith. Go Tar Heels. Sounds weird, right, Mark? But I think we're rooting for the Tar Heels today, right?
We are. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go Tar Heels. We'll catch you tomorrow on Let's Bet It. Good luck with your plays.